Hi, this is Guy Wallace. I started in learning and development way back in 1979, and I semi retired in 2023. But my current mission as a semi retired L&D professional is to help enterprise learning and development organizations become more performance based. Welcome to my podcast. Good day, Josh. Hey, thanks so much for agreeing to do this podcast with me today. I know you are a very busy guy. You're doing stuff face-to-face globally. You're doing stuff virtually. Of course, that goes globally too. So I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule here to meet with me and to talk a little bit about pursuing performance and impacting performance in the workplace for people. As a start, can you do three things for me? Can you introduce yourself, give us your name and your background in L&D for the people who may not know about you? And then can you just introduce your tool or technique by name? And then shift into, where can people use what you're going to be talking about? Sure. And if I had to guess as to what you're going to talk about, it's like everywhere and anywhere. But anyway, so yes. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah. Thanks, Guy. I'm Josh Cavalier, and I have been in learning and development for over 30 years. And I got my start back in 1994 as an art director, working for Dick Hanshaw. What an experience. That's where I learned about performance consulting. That's where I learned about instructional design. And as an art director, it seriously rounded out my education in regards to learning and development. In 1999, I formed the company Lodestone and became one of the top Adobe authorized training providers in the United States. Ran that for 20 years, wound it down, decided to jump back into corporate, went into corporate, we'll call that the COVID years, and was an individual contributor for American Tire Distributors. And in that capacity, I supported the sales function with a data and analytics product, help onboard people with Microsoft Teams during COVID, and then AI showed up. And I knew, Guy, that immediately it was going to have a major impact in the way that we as learning and development professionals do our work. And so I went down the rabbit hole, dove in deep, and broke away from American Tire. I knew it was time to go back out on my own. And the way that shows up is joshcavalier.ai. So I do, as you mentioned, webinars, consulting, workshops, do a lot of conferences, do a lot of speaking. And, here we are in 2025, and I can't believe it's already been, 2+ years doing the AI work. And I absolutely enjoy it. It's a lot of fun.
Well, thank you for that introduction. I'm glad you mentioned Dick because I met you through Dick Hanshaw when he and I co-founded the ISPI Charlotte, North Carolina chapter, and he brought you in because I knew that you had this association with him, and he was always bragging on you, quite frankly. Anyway, so enough of that. Let's shift into.
Well, hey, can I really quick? I want to mention something about you because my first reaction in hearing you talk at one of those first meetings, I thought, hey, this guy's pretty insightful. And I'm not blowing smoke. I was like, hey, this guy really has it together here.
Did you see the people whose shoulders I was standing on?
Right.
Yeah, or it was like maybe they were puppeteers and I was the puppet. But yeah, so I owe so much to my mentors. And so part of, what I want to do with this podcast is really establish an archive of people who are all in the performance improvement space through one means or another. Now, most of us come at this from a learning and development perspective, but going beyond that, the whole goal is to improve performance and not just to crank out learning content and such. And you're one of those guys, I think, that really gets that. And so, but thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, but we all owe so many other people, and we'll get a little bit to that at the end of this here. But so dive in. What are we going to talk about today?
Sure. What's fascinating is, and as you brought up, this whole entire AI experience is so much more than just producing content. And what I have found, especially in the last couple of weeks, there has been some serious releases from OpenAI and other players out there in the marketplace that is going to help individuals that want to do proper performance consulting on the front end of a project to do their work even better. I just recently completed my first cohort of my AI intensive. In that cohort, I intentionally gave them a business problem with no solution. And it's what we find each and every day. We're faced with all of these complex problems. And as part of the performance consulting process, you got to do investigative work. You need to uncover what's going on. And not to get too deep into the whole entire scenario, but I gave them SME interviews, I gave them incident reports, I gave them what was measured and how it was impacting the business, but I gave them no solutions. And we went ahead and through a methodical process began prompting and began uploading these documents. Of course, it's a made-up scenario. It's not a real business, so there's no, impact as far as security issues. And it was fascinating to see the maturity of these models go in and start to figure out what could potentially be happening. And it was a fascinating use case because it was this restaurant chain where humans and robots interacted with each other, and the robots were creating the food, but the humans had to prep it, and there was some breakdown in what was going on. And so again, via uploading these documents, going in and having the reasoning model. And again, this is different because, we have worked with ChatGPT and GPT-4 and 4o, which is great for going in and, like composing emails or writing learning objectives or multiple choice questions or all kinds of various, content creation methodologies. But with the release of the O1 and the O3 reasoning models, this is a whole different animal. I compare it to going to Daniel Kahneman, type 1 and type 2. Mm-hmm. For me, the 4.0 model is type 1. It's just a response. But the O1 and the O3 models, these reasoning models, get into some type 2, what we call chain of thought, logic and reasoning. And when you're dealing with these complex situations with multiple data points, having a partner and being able to, take the information, which could be a lot of data, and parse it out and look for what could be the potential problems is amazing. We never had that before. And again, this only came about within the last 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, so here we are. We're in early February 2025. This podcast will post in March. And the danger is, of course, everything that you talk about could be old hat by the time this posts, but it's a
right.
Fast-moving target tool set. And so where can, what should people that are, everybody is probably somewhat aware of AI, but so in the workshops and things that you're doing, mm-hmm. How are you suggesting that people start? Do they go deep? Do they go shallow? Do they start small? Do they start big? Do they start in something meaningful or something of a less critical nature?
I believe it always starts with you. This is a conversation about your relationship with technology. And everybody has an area of expertise. That's where you start. You begin looking at your tasks and trying to, use AI to assist you in that task, whatever it may be. And as a professional, you can step back and determine whether that result has value. And then you'll continue working with it. And I think it's nice and well that you can begin to expand your areas of expertise and lean on AI to attempt to do tasks that may be outside your wheelhouse, but within there is some danger because you may not understand with a critical eye the response that's coming back and start implementing outputs that could have some negative effects. So again, stay in your wheelhouse, stay where you're at, and that's where you start.
So it's really improving yourself and your own processes and practices, experiment on yourself and your own work rather than on clients' work. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Sure. Yeah. Again, these low risk, high reward type experiences with AI is where you would start.
Okay. So, what guidance do you have for our audience?
There's a lot of noise out there. It's extremely difficult to separate all of these advances that are happening in the marketplace versus the reality of the way that it shows up for you personally, either at home and especially at work. And take a look at your current reality within the workplace and determine, how can I access AI? First, is it allowed? Right? For some people I know, it's not allowed, and they end up doing shadow AI, or they're on their phone and they'll do a little bit of work and maybe push it to themselves via email. Some of the activity has occurred, but over the last couple of years, there has been a maturation. I'm seeing more established AI operations and policies in place and multiple models that people can access. What does that look like? What does that look like against the backdrop of your current learning ecosystem? That's your reality. That's what you're going to play into. Again, you can get all of this external noise happening as far as what is current state or what is happening with AI. That's not the way it's showing up for you. So work within those boundaries or those those guardrails and lean into that. What can I do to again expand the work that is happening every single day in that partnership with AI, whether it be with Copilot or ChatGPT, or even within an application like Storyline, and being able to work in there to eventually create some content. Or if you do have access to a reasoning model, doing a little bit of performance consulting work and doing some front end work as far as data analysis. So there's many different ways that you can tackle it. But again, maintain that realism and work with your leader and determine, not just what the current state is, but where things are headed for the organization 6 months, 12 months, and even more than a year out.
Given that my question here could lead to a problematic answer and that it could be, out of date by the time this rolls out, what's a low cost entry tool? If I have a choice of things that are basically free, what are my first or second choices in terms of a tool so that I can start experimenting, maybe with things in my personal life, maybe with things in my own workflows?
Sure. You can get a free OpenAI account and have access to ChatGPT. If you have a Microsoft account, you can go up and go to copilot.com and get access to Copilot. If you have a Google account, you can access Gemini. Now, these free accounts, you get access to models, but they're not the most powerful models, but you still can begin working without breaking the bank. Now, if you happen to use one of these models and it resonates with you, well, then maybe you want to pay the $20 per month and get the updated models that are faster, that have more reasoning, and do some deeper work with them.
So tell us a little bit more about some of the things that you address in your workshops and your conference presentations. Besides what we've talked about already, I still think that a lot of people are possibly, afraid to start. And what kinds of examples have you shared with people to say, here's an example, here's a case study, if you will, of dipping your toes into the water?
I think one of the more difficult conversations being had today is the talk of agents. And for so many people who are just getting started with AI, this is scary. I mean, I hear it in their voice, I see it in their eyes, they just don't understand what's going on. But there is a relationship with a single prompt, an atomic task, a thing that you do, and taking it all the way to an agent. And once you understand those relationships, you can begin to see how, as the technology becomes more complex, there is an opportunity to do some amazing, deep, automated work, but it's a house of cards. Like, it could collapse really easily. And so for an individual that's just getting started, if you understand the communication between yourself and a model, which is through prompting. Now, this shows up in a couple different ways because it could go beyond text. You could upload an image, you could upload a document or a video or an audio file and work with it that way. But at the end, you are still utilizing some kind of conversion to text to convert to talk with a model. But there is a maturation process. You start with a prompt, and that prompt can go, if it works out really well, can go into a prompt library where it's stored and shared with your peers, if you're working in a team environment. That library, if there's a series of prompts that work well together, can be a workflow to where you are going from a learning objective into an e-learning storyboard, into a video script. And having that succession work well is magical because you begin to see the velocity that's created in the potential of, being able to support audience members faster, potentially. But then there's more. So you have this workflow and it looks great. Now you can convert it into an automation. And an automation starts getting into that autonomous feature to where, based upon some type of input, there is a generated output utilizing a large language model. Here's an example. I can go ahead and create a form in Google Forms, and it could be an input from a SME, or maybe it's some information about a deficiency that's happening in your environment, and it's identified by a professional, but it's collected. That collected information can then be transformed using a large language model into a video script, and then that video script can then be emailed back to me for review. So it's kind of fascinating, and all that is an automation. Now, if that automation works well, we then can start looking at creating it into an agent. And that agent would work autonomously or with other agents to go ahead and do deeper or larger type work. So, for instance, let's say that we need to have a multilingual delivery. And so we can actually build an agent that would go in, vet the initial information coming in from our subject matter expert. If it all vets out, let's go ahead and create a video script. Let's vet that out with another agent. If that works out, we will then go ahead and, based upon our geographic locations where we're located, create 5 different videos with different languages using a call to a model like Synthesia. You can do an API call. And then next thing you know, you're out there supporting your frontline workers with 5 different multilingual videos that would have taken a week or two to get vetted. But once these agents have been tested and they're doing the work properly, that's where you have the exponential benefit. But you know what, Guy? At its core, all those agents start with a prompt. If you don't have the prompt down, it doesn't matter, because an agent will do exponentially bad work and nobody wants that. So again, for individuals that are just starting out, learn how to prompt. And it's funny because a lot of people say, well, AI is just going to go ahead and prompt for you. And in some instances it does. If you create an image in DALL-E and you prompt and you're asking for a certain image, a dog on a beach balancing a red ball on its nose, DALL-E in the background will adjust your prompt and put in there more descriptive language to give you a better result. You may not know about it, but it's changing your prompt. So, this interaction with these models are going to change and be dynamic over time, but still you have to have agency. You still need to understand how it works, because this is just the start of the conversation. It's going to continue and show up in various ways in your work environment and for yourself personally. I really do believe that in the next year, on our mobile phones, we will have AI baked in that doesn't need to be connected to the internet. You'll just have an AI agent on your phone doing tasks for you, checking a recipe, ordering groceries, booking a flight, whatever the case may be. Now, it's going to be kind of interesting because, talking to our devices all the time is a different, human computer interaction type. But Back in the 90s, we had mouse skill courses. We had to teach people how to use the mouse.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a matter of us using our voice a little bit more with AI.
I noticed on your website that you have 250 free prompts.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the thought was, how can I illustrate to someone getting started the potential of leveraging AI? And it just became apparent to go in and create various prompts to support the different moments within the learning journey. So you go in there and you can pick out, I need to go and write a video script, or I need a storyboard, or some other type of output. It doesn't have to be content. Like, there's also problem solving. Oh, you'll appreciate this. I have a whole section of prompts in there, and it's called On the Shoulder of Giants, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these prompts are all based on like Kolb and like Kathy Moore and Gagne, and it's all based on their experience, right? And Bloom. You go in and you try using these prompts, their frameworks and their models immediately get applied to the work that you do. Now, I mean, we can go back and forth on whether the work that they did was valid, but the point being is that you can pick and choose the learning science or your mentor, and their work is baked into these foundation models, like it's been trained on. And so that is an eye opener for many people, because they think it's like very transactional when it comes to like content creation, but it's so much more. You can dive in deep and work with the base foundation information and use it for problem solving.
Very, very cool. So so your website is chock full of all sorts of resources and that, but you're also doing this weekly. I think they come out on Friday. You have a series of videos that you're putting out. Tell our audience a little bit about that.
Yes. So Brain Power is a live show, 12 Eastern, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. We're going to get that cranked up in the next couple weeks. I have put a pause button on it, thinking about how I can show up better for everybody. And so that is like typically a half hour, a lesson, or what I'm currently researching for the week. For instance, this week, I'm going in and leveraging the brand new reasoning model to create interactive experiences without a programming tool or without off-the-shelf authoring tool. And it's fascinating because these reasoning models, these coding models, can go in and build a SCORM package with all the necessary files. You describe the interaction type that you want. Interactive video. I want to have a scenario where there's a conflict, and go in and build me the scripts, build me the framework, and then you can take a zip file and upload it into new architectures and new systems that are not learning management systems but can still track. And so it's really fascinating to see what the possibilities are, and that's what Brain Power is. It's kind of like my lab. My
Mm-hmm.
weekly lab, and it's an opportunity, and so it's live too. So I'm taking inbound questions and kind of riffing on the fly.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, you certainly are, on the leading bleeding edge, I think, of all of this, and I'm not tracking it as I would if I weren't retired, but I think this is really important. This is we need to use the tools as they evolve and help us do our work better, administrate our work, deploy our work. There's all these aspects here of this ever of quick and fast evolving tool set.
Right.
If you were to point, besides to your own, and I'm going to put in the show notes URL for you at LinkedIn and to your website
Yeah.
and such, what other are the entry level kinds of resources or maybe intermediary resources that are out there that you would point people to?
Right. Well, the professional groups that most people in this industry are associated with, the Learning Guild, ATD, Training Magazine, ISPI, all these wonderful groups have free webinars. I know because I typically am doing these webinars and supporting the community. And there's so many great resources that are out there, not just myself, but there are other professionals that are trying to figure out artificial intelligence and how it integrates in with learning development, performance consulting. And those voices can be heard, within those professional groups. There's a lot. Like anytime you want to dive in, odds are there's going to be a free webinar that's not vendor, initiated, that you can go in and take a half hour or an hour and spin yourself up on anything and everything AI.
So one of my questions here for you is naming 3 people that are kind of in the performance improvement arena. But before we get into those that are, whether they're AI oriented or not, can you name a couple of names for people that you might suggest that others would follow as they begin this journey?
I can give you one solid one, and that's Chris Adams. Chris and I go way back to the 1900s, and
at the Hanshaw, yeah.
And now it's Dr. Adams, and Chris is wonderful. He's such a great thinker. He's a great problem solver, and I highly recommend for anyone that wants to get into performance consulting with somebody who's doing the work, who is out there sharing. Chris Adams is spectacular. Again, great mind, and he's got as much water under the bridge as I do as far as being in this industry. So his perspective is really good.
Yeah, and he's a very good person. I have him on my list to include in this podcast series because, he is one of the people who really understands that the whole goal is performance improvement, and that's how we should measure our success and not. Anybody else that you might point people to? Because I really am trying to broaden people's networks, and it's like your mother said, be careful who your friends are. Well, be careful who's in your network. So who's doing good, solid, valid kind of work, besides Chris?
Yeah. Hold on one second. Let's see here. Kevin Yates is another guy who he's the L&D detective, and Kevin is wonderful, and he was a protege of Dick's. I had no idea, and I was talking with Kevin one day, and he's like, "Yes, I learned a lot from Dick Hanshaw." I'm like, "Yeah, there's a small world, especially in performance consulting." I'm like, the circles run really small. So Kevin is another person who's out there doing the work, and he has his own perspective on how to go about performance consulting. So another great resource.
Thank you for that. Can I shift gears here a bit, and as we get close to wrapping up, but what are the biggest challenges from your perspective in the L&D profession, and what are your thoughts about how we might tackle and resolve some of those challenges?
Right. So aside from your own personal learning journey with AI, I believe that one of the biggest challenges facing learning development is being able to support our associates against the backdrop of AI. We will face situations where the humans we support are going to be interfacing with AI at various levels. Again, so many people talk about, an agent's just going to go ahead and do things automatically. That's not the way that it shows up. The way that it shows up is that a human who's an expert, they do the work well, and then all of a sudden AI is introduced. Maybe they prompt, maybe they have an automation, maybe AI starts doing more of the heavy lifting. But you know what? I've been in this business long enough to know that technology fails. And when it fails, management wants to slide back to doing human more. Recently, McDonald's partnered with IBM to implement voice-activated drive-through technology. 3-year pilot. They were rolling it out, and everything seemed to be all right until the system started ordering 230 McNuggets or whatever, and people were getting upset with this voice system. And so it failed. I mean, well, it didn't fail. They learned, a lot from the experience, but they had to slide back to a human experience, human to human, as opposed to AI to human, even when just taking an order from a customer. And I think that is the challenge, Guy, where we will be in these different types of situations where we want to support our associates. They will be collaborating with AI. It will have successes, it will have failures, but their role in what they do is not set in stone. It's going to be this constant change that you're going to have to work with human resources and figure out who do we need in that position that can work with and collaborate with AI. And again, at various levels, whether it be building an agent or running a simple prompt, or identifying when the technology fails and we need more human in the loop. So that right there, it boggles my mind considering the vast number of roles that we support in our organization and how over the next few years, these slow disruptions are going to happen, and L&D is going to be standing there, hopefully with the tools that they need to support that reality.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, I think that's a fair warning for everyone, and that besides our own uses, we're going to have to support people who are exploring and experimenting with their uses of all this advanced technology. Josh, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to share with us today, and we'll have to get together and do lunch again sometime.
Yes, that would be amazing. And I just want to let everyone know I am actually in developmental edits of my book that's going to come out in November on ATD Press. It's called Applying AI in L&D from Platform to Performance.
Well, very cool. Again, when's it coming out?
November 18th.
November 18th. Everybody mark our calendars and check out the ATD for Josh's.
Yeah, hopefully pre-sale. That'll be going on.
That's the way to go. Yes. All right. Well, again, thank you so much, and have a great day, and I hope to see you around soon.
Thanks, guys. It's been wonderful.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.